Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Rob here. Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. Hope everyone's doing good out there. On this episode, we're going to be breaking down the season 34 cast of Dancing with the Stars, and we're also going to be giving some preseason predictions as we look ahead to the season 34 premiere coming our way next Tuesday night at 8/7 Central on ABC. Can't wait for that. We also cover the huge news coming out of the Bachelor franchise as Taylor Frankie Paul, the star of Mom Talk and the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, has been named the next Bachelorette. And then in the sports world, we also break down some Miami Dolphins talk as, I cover the embarrassing showing out of my favorite team as they completely lay an egg against the Indianapolis Colts. I also get into some other thoughts within our AFC East division. I talk about Buffalo's tremendous comeback against the Baltimore Ravens. Then I cover the Patriots and the Jets losing. But then I also go into week 2 and preview the Dolphins' upcoming matchup at home, their home opener against the New England Patriots. And then I talk a little bit about the Jets and Bills as they're set to face off this weekend as well. With all that said, before we get into things, make sure to please follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And with all that said, let's get into this episode as we start off talking about the season 34 cast of Dancing with the Stars. All right, guys, let's start off in the entertainment world with season 34 of Dancing with the Stars as we officially have our cast. So I want to get into that, and we are now officially 1 week away from the premiere of season 34, which will be coming next Tuesday night on ABC. Cannot wait for season 34. With all that said, now I'm going to go down the list. I'm going to, name all the other couples on this season of Dancing with the Stars, and then, I'll do a little deep dive into certain ones and kind of give some early season predictions in terms of, I guess you could call it preseason predictions in terms of couples I see, lasting far. All right, guys. So I want to credit here ABC.com. They listed, all the couples starting with the contestants by alphabetical order, right? With their last name. So to start off, we have Jen Affleck and Jan Ravnik. So Jen Affleck, she comes from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, one of the biggest reality shows out there right now on Hulu. So, it's an ABC product, so it makes sense she's now on Dancing with the Stars. And speaking of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, we also have another one of Jen's, castmates from that show, and that is Whitney Levitt, and she'll be dancing with Mark Ballas. So who would have thought, right? Mark Ballas is back on the show. Last year he was a guest judge for one episode, and a lot of people were hoping that he would be added into the judging panel this season, be added there alongside Carrie Ann, Eric, and Bruno. But Mark is, now back. And it's pretty funny, too, when you think of Whitney. Obviously, now she's on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but she really started on Mom Talk, this whole Mormon Wives group. They started on TikTok. And when you think of the last person Mark unretired for, it was arguably the biggest TikTok star of all time, and Charlie D'Amelio, and they ended up winning the competition that season. So it's really interesting that Mark came back for another TikTok star. But yeah, with Jen Affleck, it's pretty cool. She's actually, related in a way to Ben Affleck. So I thought that was a pretty cool fun fact. And then Jan Ravnik, for those of you that don't know that name, who have been fans of Dancing with the Stars. So Jan Ravnik, all the Swifties know who he is. He was one of the dancers on the Eras tour with Taylor Swift. All the girls would go crazy for him. So it's pretty cool to see when, it was announced that Jan would be joining Dancing with the Stars this season. I think it's a hell of a boost, right, in terms of overall viewership and votes, even though last year I know it was historic numbers, and little by little we're seeing Dancing with the Stars get back to that, high rating / high voting numbers that it would usually be at, right, in prior seasons. But I think all the Swifties are going to be tuning in on a weekly basis to see what Jen could do this season on his debut season of Dancing with the Stars alongside his celebrity contestant Jen Affleck. And speaking of the Mormon Wives and Mom Talk and all that, later on in the entertainment world, we also will cover another topic involving, Taylor Frankie Paul. She was, officially named the next Bachelorette. She's officially the first Bachelorette that does not come from the franchise, so pretty big news. But I don't want to get distracted. Let's keep on going with this list of season 34 here on Dancing with the Stars. So next up, we have Hilaria Baldwin, of course, the wife of Alec Baldwin, famous actor. Very famous for a lot of comedic roles. I love him in 30 Rock. I think that's such an underrated comedy workplace type of show. And Hilario will be partnered up with Gleb, who originally we had heard that Gleb wasn't going to be asked back this season after many years on the show. But ultimately, I feel like this is a great idea from the show because I just feel like Gleb just seems like the perfect a partner for like Hilaria's personality and all that type of stuff. They seem like pretty similar. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Hilaria could do on this season of Dancing with the Stars. Then we move on to Olympic gold medalist Jordan Childs, and she's partnered up with Ezra Sosa. Of course, Ezra last year he was a rookie as a pro on the show, and he made his series debut alongside Anna Dovey, who was pretty controversial and got out really early in the competition. So hopefully for Ezra, his sophomore season goes better than his first season. Then we move on to Baron Davis and Britt Stewart. So Baron Davis, I grew up watching him play basketball, longtime point guard for many teams in the NBA, including the Golden State Warriors and the LA Clippers, just to name a few. And then Britt, of course, I feel like she's such a fan favorite. And by the way, congratulations to Britt. She recently got married to Daniel Durant, who she was engaged to for some time. Of course, Daniel and Britt met while dancing together at Dancing with the Stars. So congratulations to Daniel and Britt on their marriage. It was nice to see a lot of the, Dancing with the Stars family out there at their wedding. I love seeing the pictures and all that stuff on, social media, and they had a whole exclusive type of thing with People magazine. So once again, congrats to Britt. And I'm excited to see what Baron Davis could do. He has a really likable personality, a lot of high energy. He's like a fun type of character. So I'm interested to see what he could do on the dance floor with Britt. Then we move on to Alix Earle. Let's go. I think Alix Earle is going to do some big things on Dancing with the Stars season 34. I will not be shocked if she's ultimately the Mirrorball champ, but we'll get into some predictions later on. But yeah, Alix will be partnered up with Val, arguably one of the all-time fan favorites in the history of the show, one of the winningest pros in the history of the show, and one of the most beloved, like I said, pros in the history of the show. Then we move on to Dylan Efron. Let's go. That's another person I'm keeping my eye on this season. I think Dylan's going to do some big things as well, just like I said with Alix. And Dylan's partnered up with Daniella, who's, man, I mean, Daniella, I think the perfect word to describe her with is badass, right? Like every time you see her out there on the dance floor, it's just unbelievable what she's able to do. And, she just has like this presence about her and something that stands out about her in comparison to some other dancers in the history of the show. I think she's one of the best in the show's history in terms of making her contestant be as good as they can be. Like she knows exactly how to put them in the best possible position for them to succeed. She's basically like I'm a big sports guy. I talk about this a lot with sports. I'm big with coaching. I think coaching is such a lost element in terms of people not talking about it enough in sports, but we're not talking about sports right now. But I'm comparing it because I feel like Daniella is just the ultimate coach, like one of the best coaches we've ever seen in the history of Dancing with the Stars. And I feel like her and Dylan, man, I think they're going to go a long way in this competition. I cannot wait to see what they do. I'm a big, for those of you that don't know, I'm a big High School Musical fan. So obviously I'm a big fan of Dylan's brother, Zac Efron. And, I'm a fan of the Traders as well. And spoiler alert, but Dylan recently won the most recent season of the Traders along with some other people. And he has a super likable personality. And, I've heard people talk about it. We all know Zac Efron is like a friggin' professional dancer. We see what he could do in High School Musical, The Greatest Showman, and the list goes on, right? We've never seen Dylan dance, but ultimately, how shocking would it really be if he could ultimately dance like his brother? I think that'd be unbelievable. And I want to shout out my sister here. I think she made a good comparison to me the other day that she could see him being like the Joey early on in this show. Where remember Joey came out last year, first dance of the whole season with Jenna, and he absolutely blew everyone's minds. That my sister thinks that Dylan could kind of be in that same, angle, right? That same path that Joey went down. And ultimately, Joey and Jenna ended up being the Mirrorball champs of season 33. Shout out to them once again, our reigning Mirrorball champs. Now we move on to Corey Feldman and the person I was just talking about, the most recent pro champion on the show, Jenna Johnson. So this is an interesting pair. Corey Feldman, he's had a super long career in Hollywood. It started off with the Goonies, such a beloved movie for 30 plus years. And, Feldman, he's gone through a lot. We've heard a lot of his stories growing up in Hollywood. He's gone through a lot of stuff in his life. And ultimately, I hope this is like kind of a moment for him where people are able to kind of like see who he really is as a person rather than the persona and all the stories we've heard over the years. And what better partner to be with than Jenna, arguably, one of the all-time great pros in Dancing with the Stars history, a multi-time champion. Just like Daniella, she makes her partners better. She knows exactly how to, how to do a perfect choreography to put her partners in the best possible position to succeed. Like I was saying a couple minutes ago with Daniella. So I'm always excited to see Jenna. And I hope Corey and Jenna could like prove some people wrong. And who knows, maybe be a dark horse in this competition this season. And we move on to Danielle Fishel and Pasha Pashkov. Danielle Fishel, of course, known for her iconic role as Topanga on Boy Meets World, and then many years later on the Disney Channel version, Girl Meets World, alongside Sabrina Carpenter. A little fun fact, Danielle and Sabrina are still super close to this day. And I'm super excited to see Danielle. You know, I think a lot of guys obviously growing up had a huge crush on her. Me, I didn't, I wasn't around yet when she first, Boy Meets World started. But obviously, as the years have gone on, I've understood why all these guys had a crush on her. You know, so pretty. Her personality is amazing. She's so likable. And I think Danielle's gonna be amazing. I think I'm putting her in my category of legit like sleepers to go far and potentially win this competition. I think Danielle and Pasha could do big things. I also love Pasha. I think he's one of the most beloved figures on the show right now too. Of course, the husband of Daniella, who I talked about a little while ago with Dylan Efron and Pasha. He's done great things so far in his career on Dancing with the Stars, and I always love his partnership with Kate Flannery, as I'm a huge fan of The Office. So I always enjoy that partnership between Kate and Pasha. But I'm super excited to see what Danielle is gonna do on this show on Dancing with the Stars. A little fun fact right now, I love this idea. So Danielle, for those of you that don't know, she has a huge podcast right now, along with two of her Boy Meets World co-stars, and basically they do like a rewatch of their show. But right now she has a brand new project that just came out. Right when the cast announcement came out on Good Morning America for Dancing with the Stars, she announced a brand new podcast called Dancing with Danielle. Basically, she's kind of going through the behind the scenes and doing a podcast on what it's like being on Dancing with the Stars. And she partnered up with iHeartRadio, which her podcast Girl Meets Pod is partnered with already, iHeartRadio. But I thought that was such a good idea. And I wouldn't be shocked if this is just the beginning. And going forward, we see other celebrities who come on the show in future seasons starting to do this idea. I love this behind the scenes look that Danielle's giving us right now. There's 2 episodes out right now as I record this on Wednesday, September 10th. But I love this idea. So make sure to go check out Dancing with Danielle. I know I'm a diehard Dancing with the Stars fan, so to me this is like super interesting, and I'm sure for all you diehard Dancing with the Stars fans out there, you would love to see and hear the actual, behind the scenes of what it's like being on the show. So I think that's a super cool idea. Then we move on to Elaine Hendricks and Alan Burston. Elaine Hendricks, most notably known for her role in Parent Trap, where, she's like the stepmother, right? And, she's like the unlikable stepmother. And all these years later now, she's in Freakier Friday. She reunites with Lindsay Lohan after, acting alongside Lindsay when Lindsay was really a little girl in Parent Trap. Elaine is super likable, super funny personality. And then, of course, she's with Alan, who is also super likable, super funny, a beloved figure in the history of Dancing with the Stars. I'm actually really excited to see this pairing. I think they could kind of shock some people. And then we move on to Scott Hoeing from Pentatonics. I wanted to make sure to pronounce that right. The Grammy Award-winning Pentatonics. We have Scott Hoeing partnered up with the young sensation, right? Riley Arnold, who was just taking the the hearts of Dancing with the Stars fans by storm in her short time so far on Dancing with the Stars. She's so beloved. She's so followed on social media, has such a huge fan base, and I can't wait to see what Scott and Riley do on this season of the show. Then we move on to Robert Irwin, who is the brother of Bindi Irwin, who won this show with Derek Huff many years ago. And Robert will be partnered up with a multi-time champion in Whitney Carson. Whitney, of course, after a couple years off from the show, returned last season, did a hell of a job with Danny Amendola, made it super far all the way to the finale. So I'm super excited. This is another couple along, like I mentioned already, Alix and Val. And then I mentioned Dylan and Daniella. I also have Robert and Whitney in this category early on, preseason predictions. I have this couple going very far. Now we move on to Lauren Howdigi and her partner Brandon Armstrong. So we all know Lauren from Fifth Harmony, one of the most successful, girl groups in recent memory. We've had multiple people from this band on the show already, and it's pretty cool that we get another member of Fifth Harmony. It's perfect timing as well, as the band that the group has recently reunited. Besides Camila Cabello, she's still doing her own thing separately. But Lauren's going to be partnered up with Brandon. She was like, it seemed like a last minute addition. I think she found out the night before the Good Morning America announcement, I want to say. And, Lauren, a lot of people are like hyping her up, obviously, because we all know these Fifth Harmony girls could dance. We've all seen them do it on stage. They've performed around the world. We all know the talent they have. And I find it really interesting. A lot of people are hyping her up, and I understand it. So it's gonna be interesting to see if she can live up to the hype. I think she will. I think she'll do a hell of a job. And another little side note here: she's born and raised in Miami. She's Cuban American, just like me. So I think it's super cool to have someone, yeah, from my city, from my culture, Dancing with the Stars is going to be super exciting. I'm sure her family here in Miami and all her loved ones are going to be watching her. So I'm super happy as a fellow Miami person and Cuban American to see one of our own, have a chance to compete for the Len Goodman Mirabal Trophy on season 34 of Dancing with the Stars. And of course, she's partnered up with Brandon Armstrong, who is absolutely beloved in this show. You look at his recent past seasons on the show, he's done amazing things. Most recently with Chandler on season 33, they're an amazing partnership. But ultimately, I think, a lot of people are excited, and rightfully so, to see what Lauren and Brandon could do on this season of Dancing with the Stars. We move on to the 14th and final couple on season 34 of Dancing with the Stars. We have Andy Richter and Emma Slater. Of course, Emma, one of my all-time favorites. Couple years ago, I'm pretty sure I talked about this on the podcast, but I was able to meet her here when Dancing with the Stars. They do a show here every year at the Hard Rock Hotel here in Hollywood, Florida. I wore a shirt of her that someone customized for me. She was super nice about it. She posted a picture of me on her story. So Emma will always have a fan with me, and same goes to Jenna, by the way. This past tour, I wore a Jenna and Joey themed shirt, and Jenna and Joey couldn't have been nicer. Shout out to them as well. But get back to this final couple. So Andy Richter, he's a big comedy guy. He's most known for being the sidekick to Conan O'Brien. Conan, of course, has been on Late Night on NBC, The Tonight Show. He had his own show, another late night show on TBS. Now he's had a podcast for many years, and Andy Richter's always been his sidekick. You might have seen him in some comedy movies and shows over the years in minor roles. He's a very funny personality. I think him and Emma have great, similar personalities. They're both fun, both bubbly, high energy. So I'm super curious to see what this couple does on this season of Dancing with the Stars. All right, guys, before I move on to my preseason predictions for this season of the show, I want to talk about the brand new troupe for season 34 of Dancing with the Stars. We have Hailey Bills, we have Carter Williams, we have Anya Stevenson, Jackson Willard. Those are our four individuals part of the season 34 troupe of Dancing with the Stars. I always like looking at the troupe, but specifically I want to highlight Hailey Bills. For those of you that don't know, she is the niece of Jenna Johnson, and Hailey Bills has been doing big things since she was, very young. For those of you who watched Dancing with the Stars Juniors, there was one season many years ago. She was on it, and ever since then, I've followed her journey via social media. I've seen all the big things she's been able to do at such a young age in the dancing world. And, I'm super happy that now she's officially part of Dancing with the Stars. And I got to say, this is just the beginning for Hailey. She's an absolute superstar. Give it a year, maybe by season 35, next season, she's going to be a pro. And whenever she becomes a pro, I just think she's going to be a superstar from day one. I cannot wait to see her develop this year. Starting off in the troupe, I think it's going to be really good for her. And it's going to give her more of an understanding and readiness for whenever that call does come to potentially be a pro on this show. But I couldn't be more happy for Hailey Bills. So shout out to Hailey and her family and Jenna and all of them. Hailey's going to do big. She's already done big things, and she's going to continue to do big things. And like I said, she's just an absolute superstar. For those of you that don't know, she recently has been touring around the world with Derek Huff on his big tour alongside Haley Erbert, just to name a few. And Haley's just done an incredible job, alongside Derek on that tour. And you could tell that Derek thinks very highly of her. Even recently, over the weekend, there was a Savannah Bananas game in San Diego, and Derek and Hailey Bills made a surprise appearance, and they danced on the field. And, I was super happy to see Hailey have that moment. And I gotta say this, I'm gonna open her story now, because as I record this, the announcement's officially been made, right, of the troupe for season 34. And I want to read this quote. So Hailey, she made a post, right? And on her story, the caption she put is "God is so good." And I just thought that was the perfect way to describe, right, the type of person that Hailey Bills is. So I couldn't be more happy for Hailey. She's gonna do amazing things. I'm a big fan of her. We're cheering her on and rooting her on here at the Flame Entertainment and Sports. And yeah, I cannot wait to see what she does going forward. With that said, now I want to get into my preseason predictions for season 34. I already mentioned, the contenders I kind of see early on. Let's mention them again: Alix, Earl, and Val. I think Alix, for those of you that don't know, she does have prior dancing experience in high school. And then ultimately, I just feel she has the it factor. I just think from night one, we're gonna be like, wow, like she's gonna look like a pro dancer. And then she has one of the all-time great pros in the history of this show, and Val. I just feel this is like a dynamic duo that is ultimately gonna end up going all the way to the finale. Then we have Dylan Efron and Daniella, who I already talked about. Like I said, just imagine if Dylan's able to move even slightly as much as Zach's able to move. Just imagine what he's gonna be able to showcase on the show, and especially with arguably the greatest coach in Dancing with the Stars history in Daniella. Then the other couple I already talked about there a little bit is Robert Irwin and Whitney Carson. Like I said, Robert's sister, Bindi, she won the show with Derek Huff, and she looked like an absolute professional dancer. And then Robert gets to do it with Whitney, who's one of the best pros in the history of the show. And I just think this couple is going to do amazing things as well. And now to name a couple couples who I kind of have as like dark horses here. So I want to mention the two Mormon wives, actually. I think both of them, Jen Affleck, who's partnered with Jan, and then Whitney Levitt, who's partnered with Mark. I think both of them are definitely dark horses, and they have huge chances of making it all the way to the finale. And then a couple I want to talk about, to go back to them, Lauren and Brandon, right? I could easily see them being in the finale, but for some reason I could also see them being out by week 2 or 3. Ultimately, I think night one is going to show a lot for most of these couples on their potential going forward and what they're able to showcase on the dance floor. But obviously, like I said, Lauren, we already know what she could do on that dance floor, as she's done hundreds and thousands of times on stage with Fifth Harmony. So I think Lauren, man, she, like, a lot of people have her as their favorite. And yeah, I think I could definitely see her going far. So I definitely want to make sure to give my thoughts on that. Like I said, it's either gonna be like they go all the way to the finale, or they're out like pretty early, that it leaves the whole audience like pretty shocked. And then the other couple I kind of want to talk about here, yeah, Danielle and Pasha. I already talked about them already, obviously, but I just feel like Danielle, we really don't know if she could dance, right? Like, we know her personality, we know she's so likable, her charisma, her charm, she has it all. But ultimately, we got to see if she could actually dance, and we've never really seen that. So ultimately, I'm super intrigued. This might be the couple I'm most intrigued by in terms of like going into night one, is Danielle and Pasha. Cause I really want to see if Danielle could dance out there. Because if she can, I think she could really go. Her and Pasha could go on a magical ride this season on the show. But yeah, guys, I'm super excited as always. Make sure to stay tuned here. For those of you that don't know, I cover Dancing with the Stars here on the podcast. One of my favorite shows to cover. We'll be giving recaps after each show. So make sure to tune in next week, Tuesday night on ABC at 8/7 Central for the season 34 premiere of Dancing with the Stars. And then make sure to come here on Thursday for the season 34 premiere Dancing with the Stars recap here, as I'll be giving my thoughts on how I think each couple did. I'm super excited to be recapping the show once again. I want to thank God once again for allowing me the opportunity to cover a show that means so much to me, and allowing me to share my opinions about this show with the rest of the world. And with that said, if you guys have any thoughts on this upcoming season, if you have any thoughts on the cast, anything you're excited about, any predictions you want to share with us, if you're watching here on YouTube, comment down below. Let us know what you think. You can also share your thoughts with us via social media on Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. But yeah, guys, that is my early season thoughts on the season 34 cast of Dancing with the Stars. Let's go. All right, guys. So for the second and final topic of the week here in the entertainment world on the Flame Entertainment and Sports, we got to cover the big breaking news that came out on Wednesday on the Call Her Daddy podcast with Alex Cooper. We had the announcement for the first time in Bachelor history. Our Bachelorette is coming from outside of the franchise, and her name is Taylor Frankie Paul, the star, right, or one of the stars of Mom Talk and The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I already covered Whitney and Jen, on the Dancing with the Stars segment, and now I gotta cover this big news, right, about Taylor being named the Bachelorette, right, for the upcoming season. So first off, I want to give some general thoughts on the idea and the decision, right, from the show, right. First of all, I think the decision was absolutely incredible. I think this could be the decision that ultimately brings back the Bachelor franchise to what it once was, as the king, right, of reality dating, right. It was the original one. For so many years, it was really the only one that was pretty much, taken seriously in terms of viewership. Then obviously over the years with all these streaming services, we've seen Love Island. We've seen Too Hot to Handle, and there's like a million shows now, and the list goes on. I just think this out of the box decision is gonna work out because you're bringing someone with such a big following that goes just beyond her role, right? Her yeah, her role on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but you go to her TikTok following on Mom Talk, you go to her following on Instagram. This girl has millions and millions and millions of followers via all these social media platforms, let alone the people who watch her on her reality show that are not on social media. So just imagine, the majority of these people are gonna tune in because they want to watch Taylor find love, right? And ultimately, I watched the interview she did with Alex Cooper. That was another decision that I got to credit the show. The fact that they had this announcement via arguably the biggest podcast in the world, right? I think that was a super smart decision. The most recent big decisions, right, within the franchise have come about through podcasts, right? You think of the Bachelor in Paradise reunion that just occurred last week. They released it on the Bachelor Happy Hour podcast. And now the announcement of the Bachelorette, they'd release it on the Call Her Daddy podcast. And I think that also speaks volumes as to how big podcasts truly are. And they're bigger than cable TV. They're bigger than radio shows. They're bigger than anything right now. And I think the Bachelor franchise is adapting to what the majority of audiences now are getting their media through, if that makes sense. The majority of people now get all their news and everything through TikTok, through Instagram, through podcasts, through watching on YouTube, through all these different types of social media platforms. And I think these two decisions, like I said, of getting someone from outside of the franchise, millions and millions and millions of followers, and then announcing it on arguably the biggest podcast in the world, those two decisions could be the two decisions that ultimately bring back like I said, the Bachelor franchise to what it once was, is like I said already, the king, right, of reality TV dating, man. So as a Bachelor Nation fan, I couldn't be more excited, more happy with this decision that ultimately the new showrunners and everyone involved decided to make. I think this is gonna be absolutely it's gonna be a home run, a grand slam, whatever you wanna call it. I think Taylor Frankie Paul, she's gonna bring the drama, she's gonna bring the realness, she's gonna bring the laughter, the tears, everything that we all want in a Bachelorette. I think she's gonna keep it real. Just to state though, like, so you all know, I have not watched one scene or 1 second of her reality show, right? The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I have not watched it, but based off the interview she just did with Alex Cooper, I watched it all. I just feel like something that I really enjoyed about the interview that I saw within Taylor is that she's a very real person. She said she's the type when she's meeting a guy and trying to get in a relationship and all that. She's the type to ask the uncomfortable questions, and ultimately for us to see that on TV, I think it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna draw people in, and people want to see realness. I think they're kind of tired of this cookie cutter, or not really cookie cutter. I don't know if that's the right like term to classify it as, but like most recent seasons of the show, it's like the leads kind of like, it feels like they're kind of forced in a way to do certain things, like how to give out the roses, how to talk to people on one-on-one dates. Like sometimes not that the leads are acting in a way, but I feel like sometimes maybe the recommendations, I guess, or the pressure of certain producers weighs so heavily on these leads that sometimes they can't be their true authentic selves. That has nothing to do with the past leads. I'm not trying to call them up. But I feel like someone like Taylor, she's not gonna be controlled. Is she gonna listen to recommendations and advice? I'm sure, from the producers, but based off of this interview, like I said, I feel like she's gonna completely be herself, right? Her true authentic self. And that's exactly, at least me, as a fan of The Bachelor, Bachelorette, and Paradise, and all the shows within the franchise, that's what I want. I want someone who's gonna be their true self. Ultimately, do we all want these people to find love? Of course. I want all these people to find love. I want everyone to find love. At the end of the day, my number one thing with the leads, I just want them to be themselves. And like I keep referring to this interview she did with Alex Cooper now on Call Her Daddy, like I think Taylor Frankie Paul is gonna keep it real at all times. I cannot wait to see her, grace our screens as the next Bachelorette. Guys, I couldn't be more excited. Let me know your thoughts. If you're watching down here on YouTube, comment down here below your thoughts on, Taylor getting picked as the next Bachelorette. If you want to share your thoughts with us as well on social media, you can do that as well on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. Let us know what you think. Are you excited for the season? What are you expecting out of this season? Do you think she'll get engaged? Let us know your thoughts. I like to hear what people have to say out there. And obviously, I feel like this is such a pivotal point for the Bachelor franchise. And for those of you that don't know as well, That goes back to the decision. Another big part of this decision, this was supposed to be the next announcement of the batch, like of a lead within the franchise, was expected to be for the Bachelor, the next Bachelor, as it was going to be the 30th season, right? The 30th different Bachelor that we've had within the history of the show. But ultimately, that's another decision. They decided to go with a female lead. And ultimately, like I've said multiple times, I'm just super excited. This could ultimately be the decision that brings back The Bachelor to what it once was, at the top of the reality dating world for years and years and years. And I couldn't be more excited as a fan, being in Bachelor Nation. I couldn't be more excited. This out of the box thinking, bringing in someone with such a big fan base already, such a built-in humongous fan base already. I think it's just gonna work out tremendously for the show. But yeah, guys, I know I kind of repeated myself there, but the thing is, I'm so excited. And I couldn't be more happy with this decision by the show. So shout out to everyone, to the casting director, to the producers, to the showrunners, everyone part of making this great decision to name Taylor Frankie Paul as the next Bachelorette. Shout out to you. Amazing job. We're going to be rooting you on. We're going to be watching. I cannot wait to see Taylor Frankie Paul as our next Bachelorette. But yeah, once again, guys, if you want to share your thoughts with us, like I said, comment down here below on YouTube. Share it with us via Instagram or TikTok at @theflame_ES. But yeah, guys, gonna wrap up our entertainment coverage for the week. A lot of exciting things we talked about: the season 34 cast of Dancing with the Stars, and then the announcement of Taylor Frankie Paul as our next Bachelorette. All right, guys, so now to switch things over to the sports world, we're gonna be starting off with a topic that I'm not gonna lie, I've been pretty speechless about ever since it occurred on Sunday. But I want to start off here. And by the way, we're just going to be strictly covering the NFL this week in the sports world. But I'm going to be starting off with the Dolphins. Our first game took a big beating against the Indianapolis Colts with a final score of 33-8. It was put it short and sweet at first, right? It was a complete disgrace, a complete embarrassment. It was an absolute joke. There was not one glimmer of hope at all. And when there's not even 1 ounce or one glimmer of hope, that's when things are pretty dire. Obviously, people might say, "Oh, you're overreacting. It's one game." Okay, I understand you. And then there's other people who are like, "Oh, the world's ending," because after one game. I understand both sides. I'm not trying to be completely overreacting, but at the same time, I gotta keep it real and give my honest stats. So I don't even know if I'm gonna get into stats or numbers or anything because, like I said, there wasn't even 1 ounce of hope in this game. So to start off, the amount of turnovers and mental mistakes we had in this game is a continued pattern, unfortunately, of these 4 years now with Mike McDaniel as our head coach. I mean, we've been arguably the most undisciplined team in all of football, and this game continued that trend, unfortunately. We had so many missed tackles on defense, a lot of blown coverage, which, in my opinion, I think our secondary, people got to be realistic. We have a lot of guys out there that were put in situations in which they don't belong, in my opinion. So I'm not expecting much of the secondary this season. Besides, obviously, I know we have Minkah Fitzpatrick, but at the end of the day, he's one person out there. There's only so much he could do. You can't cover up for every single guy's, mistake out there. He's one person, like I said. Tua, I'll get into Tua. For those of you that don't know, I'm one of the biggest Tua supporters out there, and I absolutely love Tua. I think Tua is a franchise quarterback. Tua is a quarterback you can win a Super Bowl with. But at the end of the day, I do have to admit, this game against the Colts, I will say, this was the worst career game, the worst game of Tua's career so far. But the thing with me, right? Like I said, I'm a big Tua supporter, but I keep it real, right? In my opinion, Tua's been one of the most hated players since coming out of Alabama when we drafted him in 2020. With that 5th overall pick in the first round. He's been one of the most hated players. This guy will have a game. He throws 2 or 3 touchdowns and people are hating on him and saying he's horrible. So then imagine this game, he does terrible. He threw 2 interceptions that were so uncharacteristic of him because a trait I always attribute to Tua that you can't take away is his high IQ, right? I think Tua is one of the smartest players I've ever seen in my life. Ultimately, he threw 2 interceptions in this game that are very low IQ. And besides the interceptions, there are also 3 or 4 other throws that are just pretty dumb. Honestly, they're super uncharacteristic, but we've come to know out of Tua Tagovailoa. So it was sad to see him play this way. I root for this guy extra hard. I got to admit that most players that I have rooted for in my whole life because, like I said, the guy takes a bad step and people start like hating on him. So any little thing, anything he does, people just like crap on him and they're just like negative towards him. So to see him out have an outing like this as a big Tua guy, it was sad to see it. You know, I don't want to see like Tua playing like this because it gives fuel to it, right? To all these people that wanted Deshaun Watson and Justin Herbert and Jordan Love and all these people, right? So yeah, I had to start off here with Tua because, you know, at the end of the day, like I said, this was by far the worst game of his career. I've never seen him play this unsmart and ever. Like I said, that's one of the traits that I always tell people, you can't take away how smart Tua is. Unfortunately, this was the first time I've ever seen him be unsmart, you know? But ultimately, with all that said, it was a bad game. Like I said, bad decisions, but that's still my quarterback. To keep it real with you guys, that's my guy. I still believe in Tua. I think Tua's an amazing player, amazing quarterback, super smart player as well. I think he's gonna bounce back and be completely fine, you know. So I'm a Tua guy, you know. Um, that's my quarterback. You guys can have different opinions. I totally get it. It's his 6th year. You know, we start off with such a bad performance, the worst performance of his career. I understand it. If you don't want to, look, everyone has their opinions, right? That's the thing with me. Have your opinions, right? Have your reasonings, and it's all good with me. I'm not gonna like put you down or try to argue with you because you don't like Tua. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna keep defending him because I'm not gonna let one game just be like, no, I'm done with him. You know, he had one bad game. You know, he's a human being. This was the first bad game of his career, in my opinion. But it is what it is. I gotta defend my guy, but I keep it real as well. But shout out to Tua. And with that said, I think the bigger issue here it goes beyond. It's like people just classify it as Tua, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel. If you truly watch this game on Sunday against the Colts, if you truly know football, you would know that every single guy on this team should be blamed for that performance. Every single player, every single coach, every single front office executive, every single person within this organization. Because that was an absolute embarrassment what the Dolphins put out there. Like I said, not one glimmer of hope. And when there's not one glimmer of hope, as I already mentioned to start off this topic, that's when things are very much dire. I cannot imagine what it's been like in the locker room. I'm recording this Wednesday, September 10th. It's currently 4:22 p.m. Eastern time. Today was their first practice since that embarrassing start to the season. I hope these guys took it more seriously than ever. I hope the guys, by the way, I want to talk about a quote that Tua said after the game. He said, I'm very curious to see who comes on Tuesday for film study because Tuesday was an off day. So not everyone's like expected to go or required to go. But I thought that was a very telling quote. And I hope the whole freaking team came on Tuesday to do some film study, man, because I'm going to sound like a broken record, but yeah, it was just an absolute embarrassment what they put out there. Some other elements on offense, our offensive line is still horrible. Unfortunately, our newly signed right guard, man, who we signed this offseason from Pittsburgh, James Daniels, he suffered a pec injury. We put him on injury reserve, so he's at least for a minimum out for the next 5 games. That sucks. Then our right tackle, Austin Jackson, missed out of training camp. He came back for this game. We were excited. Oh, thank God, he's not missing time. I guess late in the game, he suffers a toe injury. It looks like he's most likely going to be out this Sunday against New England here. So it looks like our right side of the line is already injured after just literally one game, let alone James Daniels. I think it was after 3 or 4 plays. So that sucks. The injuries just continue to pile on as well. And with that said, we didn't make multiple signings this week. We signed Cole Strange, the former first-round pick of New England, off of the Browns practice squad. So, I mean, I can't tell you much about him. I haven't watched him enough, but it looks like he may be starting somewhere on the right side this week. We're going to have to wait and see him. We signed another player to add to the right side of the line, but, we're going to have to wait and see what happens there with the offensive line. Receiving-wise, I mean, Tyreek Hill, he did fine, I guess. Like, he had 4 catches. There's multiple times. There was one time he caught a ball, then he took a big hit, then he subbed himself out. Then he makes a next catch, and then he subs himself out again. I'm not putting it like on him because honestly, he took like 2 big shots, so obviously that sucks. And Waddle, unfortunately, man, such a talent, but man, it's crazy the amount of injuries. It's just sad to see. I had forgotten about Waddle, and I think we were like in the 3rd quarter. I want to say I brought up Waddle to my dad while we were watching the game. He makes his first catch, and boom, he could like hardly get up. His back looked like super weird. But thankfully, he was able to come back and finish the game. But it was just like, man, it's like they're not showing hope, and then we just keep getting hurt and hurt and hurt, and it's just like, dude, Come on. Running back wise, I mean, HN, he scored our lone touchdown in the game. He did fine. Ali Gordon got maybe 3 carries. I thought he was gonna get a lot more. Ultimately, I kind of felt like, oh, since we couldn't really get things going and the Colts were like scoring from early on, we kind of went into panic mode, I guess. But at the same time, McDaniel never really like emphasized the run game. But then it's tough too. He doesn't emphasize the run game. But then also our offensive line is so bad and inconsistent. That's just a all around mess in my opinion right now for the Dolphins. So, I think I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts on the Dolphins. I could go on and on and on for hours, but like at the end of the day, I don't even want to think about this game anymore. I'm not gonna lie. Now we gotta look forward to what we do now in week 2. Our home opener this Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, Hard Rock Stadium. We host our division rivals, New England Patriots, as they come off of a loss at home against the Las Vegas Raiders, 20-13. I was able to watch like a little recap video of that game, and to me, in my opinion, it kind of seems as if New England kind of beat themselves. And now to kind of do a little preview of this New England Miami game. I'm not gonna lie, I'm super scared. Mike Vrabel, right, new head coach of the Patriots. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league. I think he's one of the rare elite coaches. You look at his time with Tennessee, what he was able to go and do there with the rosters he had. That guy always went above and beyond with the rosters he was given in Tennessee. And I just feel like after that week 1 loss they had against the Raiders, and then after probably watching the film tape of our game against Indianapolis, I feel like Mike Vrabel is like foaming out of his mouth, and he cannot wait for this game on Sunday. I think he's like ready to eat us alive. I'm pretty worried about this game, and I think it's understandable in general, even if it wasn't Mike Vrabel on the other side, but especially since it is Mike Vrabel. I still go back to that game 2 years ago, Monday Night Football. We're leading the AFC East. Tennessee had one of the worst records in the league, and they beat us here at home Monday Night Football. And it was just an absolute embarrassment, but ultimately Mike Vrabel outcoached Mike McDaniel that game, and that's why they won that game. And now you look at the team he has in New England, and like I said, they're coming off of a loss. Mike Vrabel is such a competitive guy. He just wants to freaking do anything in his power to help his team win. So I know he's going to be ready to go. So ultimately, as Dolphin fans, as always, and any type of fans, right? All we can do as fans of any team is just hope for the best and, cheer our guys on. That's all we can do at the end of the day. And, that's what I'm going to be doing always, regardless, right? Regardless of the BS that's going on here right now in Miami. You know me, it spins up here always. That hasn't changed and it won't change. So, fins up. Let's see what happens. Can we shock the world? I really hope so, but we're going to have to wait and see on that one. All right, guys. So for the second half, right, of this NFL sports segment here on the podcast this week, we're going to cover. So last week, I did a season preview. I went division by division, giving my, division winners, my wild card team, Super Bowl pick, all that type of stuff. What I'm going to be doing now is I want to follow along each division. And basically, I want to follow along my predictions for each division. I'm going to start off this week with the AFC East because that's the first division I covered on the season preview last week. So my predictions going into the season, I kind of remind people, for those of you that didn't tune into the preview, I have the Bills winning the division. I have New England in second, coming in as the 5th seed. Then I have the Dolphins in third, coming in as the final 7th seed, right? In the AFC playoff picture. And then I have the Jets finishing in last place in the division. So far, 3 of the teams are winless. Miami, of course, like I just said, we got annihilated by Indianapolis. New England, like I said, they kind of beat themselves. But, credit to the Raiders. Pete Carroll first win there as their coach. And then we had the Jets losing the absolute barn burner, the highest scoring game of the week. They unfortunately lost to their former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Buffalo Bills, man, with the ultimate comeback, the best comeback of the week, alongside the Vikings as well. They did a hell of a comeback. But Buffalo, under 3 minutes to go in their game against Baltimore, they're down 15 points. They end up winning by 1 point. Just an absolute masterclass of resiliency and continuity, right, that Buffalo's had throughout this tenure with Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, Brandon Bean. It's just been unbelievable. I was able to watch that fourth quarter comeback, and Buffalo, it was just unbelievable. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, right? The resilience, man. That's one of the terms or one of the things that all championship teams, when you really look at history, not just the NFL, MLB, NBA, I'm sure NHL, college sports, high school, whatever it is, championship teams always have to have some sort of resiliency. Without it, I don't think you could accomplish that ultimate goal of lifting up that trophy and being the champion of your respective league or sport, right? And I think the Buffalo Bills ultimately showed that they're completely resilient. and they're ready to go. They're in it to win it. Obviously, it's one game, but that resiliency to see that from day one, I think speaks volumes to the type of organization, the type of people they have right there in Buffalo. So shout out to them for at least giving the AFC East at least one win, man. I mean, come on. And then to look forward to week 2 for this division. So, like I said, obviously, I did a preview, Miami, New England. And then we have the Jets and Bills. So we have 2 AFC East divisional showdowns this weekend. We have the Jets playing the Bills. I'm picking the Bills. I think they're going to win again. But with that said, the Jets did show a lot of promise in their first game against the Steelers. Justin Fields, I thought, had a hell of a debut as the Jets quarterback. And, I don't necessarily think Buffalo's going to win by 20-something points. But I do think they'll win by, I'm going to say between 8 to 11 points. I think Buffalo will win this game. I think ultimately their coaching is levels ahead of the Jets coaching as expected. I mean, the Jets have a brand new staff with a rookie head coach and Aaron Glenn. So I think the coaching element, I think Joe Brady, his offensive play calling is just absolutely masterful. One of the best play callers in all of football. And, that Buffalo coaching staff. And then, the team, like I said, the resiliency they showed, led by their leader and Josh Allen, just unbelievable. Their defense is able to step up against Baltimore, make some plays. Derrick Henry ran directly down their throat throughout the whole night. Ultimately, the defense was able to keep fighting, keep adjusting, and they're ultimately able to cause a fumble against the Ravens at the end of that game, cause a fumble with Derrick Henry, actually, and Buffalo was able to come back and win. So I definitely have them beating the Jets. But like I said, I don't want to just say discount or put down the Jets, right? Because it has such a great showing in Aaron Glenn's debut as a head coach, So yeah, guys, it's going to wrap up our sports segment this week. If you guys have any thoughts you want to share and you're watching down here on YouTube, make sure to comment down here below. You can also share your NFL thoughts with us via social media on Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. If you want to give your thoughts on any of these week 1 games, any week 2 games you're looking forward to, or anything within the NFL right now that you want to release your opinions with the world, that this is the place for you. The Flame Entertainment and Sports. We definitely welcome all opinions here within the NFL. So yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this NFL segment. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Flame Entertainment and Sports. Hope you enjoyed our conversations within the entertainment world as we covered the season 34 cast of Dancing with the Stars. And of course, we have the season 34 premiere coming our way next Tuesday night on ABC at 8/7 Central. Make sure to tune into that. And I hope you also enjoyed hearing my thoughts on the decision made by the Bachelor franchise that could potentially change everything, bring them back to being the crown jewel of reality TV dating, as they announced Taylor Frankie Paul as the next Bachelorette. And they announced it via arguably the biggest podcast in the world, Call Her Daddy, with Alex Cooper. I also hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on some NFL Week 1 action, including my thoughts on the Dolphins' complete embarrassment against the Indianapolis Colts. Hope you enjoyed hearing the rest of my thoughts on our fellow division rivals, whether it be New England, the Jets, and Buffalo. Hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts as well as we preview and look ahead to week 2 this week as the Dolphins host New England and then the Jets take on the Buffalo Bills. Make sure to keep up with us, guys, on social media, on Instagram and TikTok. Share your thoughts with us. I would love to hear your opinions on any of these topics we covered today. Make sure to subscribe as well, please, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Share with a friend you think would enjoy hearing about, Dancing with the Stars, the Bachelorette, anything within the NFL that we covered today. I'd greatly appreciate it. And with all that said, till next time, everyone, fins up and take care.